Hi everybody, this is Noelle from Petitti Garden Centers. We are here in Oakwood Village and we're going to talk to you about lucky plants. So we're going to do a spotlight on lucky plants, and you ask, why lucky plants, Noelle? What are we doing at this time of year? Well, it's nice to talk about this because it's during winter, we're inside, and there's a bunch of house plants that bring some good positive energy into the house. And this kind of follows Feng Shui. If you've ever heard of Feng Shui before, there's a belief in Feng Shui where if you bring in the right plants into the right part of your space, it brings positive energy to you, and it balances the 5 elements. So it's wood, which the plants symbolize, water, fire, earth, and metal, okay? So when you bring these plants, these lucky plants, I should say, when you bring them into the right space, they produce luck for you. They also symbolize things like resiliency, strength, health, energy, what else? Oh, yeah, that's right, and prosperity. So that's what we're looking for today, and that's what we're gonna show you today as well. So with all of these plants, we're gonna talk about their light requirements and what you do need to care for them and be successful with them, of course. And you can see a lot of green right here. It's because wood, the element of wood, of course, is symbolized by green. Green, of course, reflects to money and prosperity again, so you kind of see where I'm going. The other thing with your lucky plants is that most of them are upright growers. In Feng Shui, you want the plants to be growing upright, again, positively growing upwards. If you see a droopy plant or even a prickly plant like a cacti, that's really not part of Feng Shui. That's kind of negative energy. So we want all of our plants to be growing upright, healthy, green. And the other thing that you're looking for with these plants is typically they have rounded leaves. And we'll talk about a few of these, but the more round the leaves, the more symbolic they are of maybe looking like coins. Again, more money, so more luck. There we go. So let's start out with probably one of the most well-known plants out there is actually called lucky bamboo, okay? And lucky bamboo, I'm gonna hold up 2 of these. One just short and straight, a little bit smaller, one curly. And you probably have seen lucky bamboo before. It's one of the easiest plants to grow in just water. You can tell that these stems have been grown in water. They have their roots down below, some new roots that are bright white, really good, and then some older roots that are just a little bit orange, and that's okay. They're a little bit woody, but they've been growing in water for quite some time, and they'll do just fine like that. You can grow them in water, no problem. You can grow them in soil as well. This plant, a lot of people don't know, it's actually not a bamboo grass at all. It actually is a Dracaena. And sometimes we call Dracaena spikes or dragon trees or corn plants. They have a lot of different names, but this variety here is Sanderiana, and Dracaena sanderiana actually is known as lucky bamboo. Really, really easy to grow. They typically like a bright indirect light to medium indirect light. And I'm going to tell you basically everything that I'm going to show you today is good in that type of light condition. So look for those bright indirect light areas that's right up near a north-facing window. Don't press it against the glass though, because it's really cold out there and that will definitely damage foliage and stems and that type of thing. But near a north-facing window, perfect condition for bright indirect light. Or bring it back about 5 to 6 foot away from a sunny window, an eastern, southern, western exposure. Bringing them back a bit, you'll still get that bright indirect light condition. This plant can also go down to medium indirect light. So kind of in the middle of a bright room works really, really well. And we like to put these in glass vases, maybe put some petals or some pretty glass marbles down in the bottom of the vase. They'll do just fine there. And as long as you are filling it with water about once a week, and then go ahead and pour out after that week is over, and then refill. Try to use filtered or distilled water because they are chlorine and fluoride sensitive, okay? So do be aware of that. Other than that, normal household temperatures really for all of these plants I'm talking about today. Higher humidity is really nice for the Dracaena family, where they appreciate higher humidity, but they can tolerate lower humidity levels. So that's something to think about as well with these tropical plants. But higher humidity, especially in the middle of winter when it's pretty dry in our home environments and office environments, that's always going to be a good thing for you and the plants, okay? Again, these plants are wonderful. Again, being part of Feng Shui, I wanted to tell you that placing lucky plants in the eastern part of your home or office, or even in the eastern part of your room, actually creates better chi, better positive energy. So that's something to keep in mind as well. And with lucky bamboo, 1, 2, 3 stems is really good as far as bringing in a little bit more abundance, a little bit more prosperity. Don't have 4 stems. I found out that if you're growing 4 stems, it actually means death. So you don't want to give anybody 4 stems of lucky bamboo. That's bad, okay? Other than that, any other number really works out really well. And I think the more stems you accumulate and grow, the more abundance you are to be given, or more luck you're going to have. So that's something to keep in mind. With these guys, they do get taller and taller as they grow. That's with all Dracaena. You'll find that the lower leaves may yellow and peel off, because they do. They kind of, each segment sort of peels off, and that's okay. That's naturally how Dracaena grow. So they will get taller. You might get side branches or side nodes that will start developing new growth. That's great too. And you can also trim any foliage that's looking a little haggard for you. If they get dry tips like Dracaena may get, again, it's more of an indication of that humidity or lack of humidity in their growing environment. So do keep that in mind. Humidity is pretty important. Okay, so lucky bamboo. 1, 2, 3, don't do 4, 5 or more, great. Okay, now, next plant that we're gonna look at, and I forgot to tell you, the Dracaenas are actually native to Africa. So it's kind of interesting that they are sort of brought into like Asian culture, part of Feng Shui. So it's kind of interesting that these plants are kind of all from all over the world, but it kind of all feeds into that positive energy that they can provide you. I should have mentioned also, Dracaena are great air purifying plants. So that helps, again, create a cleaner environment. So that's also a good thing about them. Okay, let's look at this cool plant, and I love it. This is what we call a money tree, okay? I've heard it pronounced Pakira, Pachira, really money tree. Works really, really well. This plant is actually native to South America, Mexico. And what's interesting about it is it grows in more swampy areas, fairly wet areas. But as a house plant, you can grow it in soil, no problem whatsoever. Well-drained potting mix is fine. Keep the soil evenly moist, and they can actually take a slightly drier condition. So that's great. These plants are known to be very, very easy care, no problem whatsoever. They have fairly long life to them, and again, symbolizing longevity for you as well. What you'll notice with the money tree is that their foliage typically has 5 leaflets to it. So remember I was mentioning the 5 elements. So that's very symbolic of the 5 elements of Feng Shui. The other neat thing about some of the Pakira or a money tree is that they have this braided trunk. So three stems braided usually means new beginnings. 5 stems braided means, again, prosperity, and the more stems, again, better abundance, better prosperity, but that is also obviously a very lucky thing to have multiple braided stems too. So this plant is absolutely wonderful. Same thing as with the lucky bamboo. You're looking at normal household temperatures, no problem whatsoever. Higher humidity is great. It can benefit both you and the plant. Bright to medium indirect lighting is wonderful for this plant as well. And they do come in a couple different types. So I'm showing you the braided trunk here, but there's also stump forms of the money tree. So you can see this nice stump, this thick stump. And once these stems that are being produced get about 14 inches tall. So this stem is really getting big enough. When they're still pliable, that's when you can start braiding them if you want to try braiding. I should mention, when you are watering these guys, anytime they're in the potting mix, again, I mentioned even moisture. Just make sure that when you're watering, you thoroughly moisten the soil substrate. Let that water come out and drain out. Now, this pot has a nice little dish underneath that's attached, but that water is going to bubble over and come out. So do it over a sink or a bucket or what have you. Water thoroughly, let the water drain and come out of that dish underneath, and then do that one more time. Water thoroughly, let the water come out, drain out of the dish, and then go ahead and put it back in its place, okay? So great plant, the money tree, and really, really easy to take care of. I should mention also that Petitti is also non-toxic for people and pets. So if you're looking for a lucky option in that respect, that would be a good plant for you too. Okay, next plant that I have here is the Sansevieria or snake plant. And of course, we're real familiar with this plant. I love snake plants. They're my favorite, really, honestly. And it's just because they're just so easy and low maintenance. Well, what's cool about the snake plant is that, again, it has that upright growth, and it looks like swords, if you will, the pointier leaf varieties. And so in Feng Shui, that's actually a protective plant. And so you place this by the front door, and that's wonderful with snake plants because you could basically place them in bright indirect lighting all the way down to low lighting, and they do really, really well. And it actually is a protective plant. So it definitely keeps out the bad vibes, keeps out gossip, keeps out, those types of things, bad energy, and keeps the good vibes inside. So snake plant. Snake plant, of course, is semi-succulent, so they don't need a lot of water, but again, you're gonna thoroughly moisten this plant. You're gonna let it drain out. Of course, if you have it in a nice pot that doesn't have any drainage holes, make sure you're dumping that pot out, the water out of that pot, and then placing the plant back in when you're finished watering, okay? They don't wanna sit in water at all. You can leave them on the drier side of watering. I wouldn't go as far as I would with a succulent, and I'm gonna explain that in a little bit, but they can really go fairly dry before you have to go ahead and thoroughly moisten the soil substrate again. Back here is a unique plant. This is what we call a Ginseng Ficus, okay? And this ficus is a little bit unusual because it's kind of got a built-in sort of bonsai look to it. And bonsai are also very interesting in Feng Shui, where bonsai basically symbolize peace and harmony, and again, a balance with nature. So you automatically get some good vibes with this plant and some luck with this plant. They call it Ginseng Ficus because of this knobby root system, as you can see down below. And so it resembles ginseng, the root. So it is actually not. This ficus is actually in the mulberry family or fig family. And so as we use them as houseplants, there's lots of common ficus that we grow, like your rubber plant, for example. That's a very common ficus that we grow. This one, again, bright indirect light to medium indirect light, even moisture to just slightly dry moisture. With all ficus, I'll always tell folks, don't move them around too much. Find a good spot for them and leave them there, because once you do move ficus around in the home and try to find a good space, they tend to drop foliage, so just be aware of that. Humidity, again, higher humidity, 50% or above is really, really nice for the ficus family, especially when they have the smaller green leaves like this ficus does. And what's interesting about this plant is it's a relatively fast grower. So if you want to keep it more bushy and want to keep it looking more like a bonsai, go ahead and trim it, especially in the spring. And the springtime is a great time to do that, where you're going to remove some of these larger leaves, cut it back to the smaller leaves, and that will make it have more of that bonsai look and canopy, and it'll keep the canopy really dense and short and cute around your ginseng type root system, okay? This plant, like I said, very, very lucky just because it is like a bonsai out there. And again, has that bright green growth, rounded foliage. Again, we're checking a lot of boxes in Feng Shui for positive vibes. The last plant that I wanted to show you, and I just have this little guy here, but oh no, I have two more, sorry. So this little guy is a jade plant, and you're probably very familiar with the jade family. It's also known as the Crassula family. Crassula ovata is this jade plant where it has these nice rounded leaves, very soft and succulent, and this is a classic, what we call money plant. So again, very symbolic of prosperity, hopefully giving you good luck. This is a true succulent. So like I was talking about with the snake plant earlier, it's succulent-like. I wouldn't let them go completely dry in the pot, but the jade plant, I would, okay? So when you're watching to water this plant next, wait for the soil to actually, wait for the soil to actually contract back from the walls of the pot before you irrigate it thoroughly, okay? The reason being is succulents, they don't need a lot of water, especially when it's wintertime, cooler out there, and cooler inside the house sometimes. And so what happens is you want that soil to really kind of dry out in between waterings before you do thoroughly water again. I'd recommend a cactus soil or a mixture of a standard potting mix like 50-50 with the cactus soilless mix and a normal potting mix. It just helps. They do so much better when they have a porous mix like most succulents and cacti do. And so you want that water to continue to drain from their soil. You never want them sitting in water ever. That's just not really good for your succulent family or jade family here. I also wanted to show you something pretty neat. And as far as humidity is concerned, this one doesn't need it at all. Again, being a succulent doesn't need high humidity at all, can take drier conditions, can take cool dry over the winter too. Maybe if you have a bright room that's a little bit more cool, has a lot of windows, this would work out fine for that type of space. But I wanted to show you, and I found it right at the bottom because I was going to remove this leaf, and Taylor's going to come real close, but this leaf was detached already. And what happened, and this is how we propagate the jade, is that this leaf was just set out on top of the soil. It calloused over, so we usually let our succulents callus for about 5 to 7 days. It forms like just a little bit of like a woody covering over where it fell off. And then look at this, you see full roots and baby jade plants pushing up from that. And it was just hiding down here at the base. So I'm going to leave it down there, and as it gets watered and so forth, it's going to stay and of course root into the soil and do a fine job. Again, bright indirect light is great for this plant. Some sun is also okay, but a good indicator if it's getting too much intense sunlight is it will start to develop this kind of red rim around the foliage, and this one looks pretty good. But if it develops that bright red rim, that usually means that's a lot of sunlight coming through, and the pigments are starting to change in that leaf. So do be aware of that. You might want to pull it away from that sunny window if you do see that happen, okay? Last one I wanted to touch on is this guy. And this plant has become really popular since let's say 2018, somewhere around there, it is just skyrocketed. And I think it was one of the first plants to really be noticed on Instagram or social media. I'm not sure which one, if it was Facebook or Instagram or what have you, but this is a really, really popular plant. It is called Pilea peperomioides, and this plant is also known as pancake plant, friendship plant, and also money plant. Again, rounded green foliage, is growing upright, resembling coins, okay? And of course, upright positive growth here. And what's really interesting about this Pilea is that, I'm gonna take it out of its pot. It's so easy to propagate. There are a bunch of little baby plants right in here. I'm gonna kind of pull back the foliage. Can you see that, Taylor? This way? Or maybe turn it a little bit. Can you see those baby plants in there? And then look at down below. So there are little babies coming off of the rhizomes down below here too. So this plant is very, very low maintenance, very easy. Again, in that bright indirect light to medium indirect light condition, no problem. Evenly moist to slightly dry soil, like most of these plants would prefer. And humidity, sure, you can absolutely, it can be in a more humid environment. It can take a little less humidity as well because it has more of a succulent leaf to it. So it's holding on to a lot of moisture, but it's just fun and really, really easy to grow. And I should have mentioned this one also is kind of a Southeast Asian native. So it does kind of, like I said, you'll see it in Feng Shui and different areas of the home. All different plants, all really fun, green, upright, kind of rounded or soft foliage. Again, place them in the eastern or southeastern parts of your home, office. That's where you're going to get the best chi, best positive energy, of course, and enjoy.